Space was quiet and too quiet for comfort. The human fleet drifted near the edge of a glowing nebula, a place filled with cold beauty and hidden danger. 12 ships, once proud explorers, now looked tired and worn from long months of war. Their metal hulls bore the marks of past battles and their engines ran low on power. Captain Elena Ward stood on the bridge of the HSS Resolute, staring at the star-filled screen. The faint blue light reflected in her calm eyes. She was young for a captain, but the war had made her older inside. Around her, the crew worked quietly. There was no laughter, no talking, only the soft hum of machines. Then the silence broke. "Captain," said Lieutenant Chen, the officer at the scanner console. "We've got movement, multiple contacts appearing on long-range radar." Elena turned sharply. "How many?" Chen's fingers flew over the controls and his eyes widened. "Hundreds, ma'am. Maybe more. They're closing fast from all directions." The captain's jaw tightened. "Put them on the screen." The view changed. All around the small human fleet, dark shapes appeared like shadows in the stars. Sleek black warships, sharp-edged and built for speed. Each one carried the glowing insignia of the Carthan Dominion, a powerful alien empire known across the galaxy for conquest and control. In seconds, the human fleet was surrounded. The bridge lights dimmed slightly as the ship's defensive shields rose. A low hum filled the air. The crew exchanged nervous looks. They all knew what this meant. There was no escape. "Ma'am," said the communications officer softly, "the Carthan flagship is hailing us." Elena took a deep breath. "Put them through." The speakers filled with a deep, cold voice. "Humans," it said slowly, the words thick with arrogance. "You have entered space owned by the Carthan Dominion. You will surrender your ships and technology immediately. Resistance will result in your destruction." The crew stared at their captain, waiting. Everyone knew what surrender to the Carthan meant. Slavery, experiments, or simply vanishing without a trace. Captain Ward stood tall, her expression calm. "This is Captain Elena Ward of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet," she said clearly. "We acknowledge your message." There was a pause. Then she added in a firm, steady tone, "And we decline your offer." A sharp laugh came through the speakers, harsh and mocking. "You are surrounded, human. Outnumbered 50 to 1. Your weapons are weak. You have no chance of survival." Elena smiled faintly. "You might be right," she said. "But humans don't surrender just because the odds look bad." She motioned to her officer. "Cut the channel." The voice disappeared and the bridge went silent again. For a few long seconds, no one moved. Then, unexpectedly, someone in the back, a young navigation officer, then gave a small laugh. It was quiet at first, just a nervous chuckle. But then another crew member joined in. Then another. Within moments, the bridge filled with laughter. Not loud, not wild, but honest laughter. The crew was scared, but the sound broke their fear. It reminded them they were still human, still capable of hope, humor, and defiance even when death stood at their door. From the alien flagship, the Carthan Commander General Takor watched the human ships on his screen. His red eyes narrowed as he saw the human vessels glowing faintly and heard strange signals from their communications. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "Are they sending a distress call?" His aide shook his head. "Negative, General. The humans appear to be transmitting sound? Yes, sir, it is." Laughter. Takor frowned, confused. "Laughter? At a time like this?" The aide looked nervous. "It seems so, General." Takor turned toward the massive starfield outside. The small human fleet looked fragile. 12 ships against hundreds. Yet instead of panic, they laughed. It made no sense. "What sort of species laughs when surrounded?" he muttered. Back on the Resolute, the laughter slowly faded. The captain looked around at her crew. Some still smiled, some looked embarrassed, but all of them seemed a little lighter. "Feeling better?" Elena asked softly. Lieutenant Chen smiled. "A little, ma'am." "Good," she said. "Because we're not done yet." She activated the fleet-wide channel. All 12 human ships could hear her voice now. "This is Captain Ward. We're surrounded, yes. Outnumbered, yes. But we are not defeated. The Carthan think we'll kneel because we're scared. They're wrong." She paused to let her words sink in. "We'll fight smart. We'll fight together. Even if this is our last stand, let's make it a story they'll remember forever." Across the fleet, tired crews lifted their heads. Pilots clenched their fists. Engineers worked faster. Fear turned into determination. Then something else happened, something even more unexpected. The communications officer on the Resolute smiled and asked, "Captain, permission to play something?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "Play what?" "An old Earth song," he said. "Something to lift spirits." She thought for a moment, then nodded. "Do it." Moments later, the quiet of space filled with a strange, powerful sound. The human ships began transmitting a signal and music. Drums echoed softly through the void, followed by a deep, rhythmic chant. It wasn't random noise. It was an ancient Earth song, one that spoke of courage, unity, and facing the impossible. The music spread through the open space, bouncing between ships, carried by radio waves that reached even the Carthan sensors. On the alien flagship, General Tukor's crew stared at their screens. "General," one of them said carefully, "the humans are singing." "Singing?" "Yes, sir. It seems to be a pre-battle ritual." Tukor's claws tapped against the metal floor. He didn't understand. His species only knew fear and obedience. The idea that an enemy could laugh and sing before battle was unthinkable. "Monitor them closely," he ordered. "Something about this feels wrong." Meanwhile, inside the Resolute, the crew joined the music. They tapped their feet, hummed along, or simply smiled. The mood shifted completely. Fear had turned to strength. Elena Ward looked at the stars ahead. The alien ships were closing in, preparing to fire. Yet she felt no fear now, only pride. She touched the small silver pendant around her neck, engraved with the Earth symbol, and whispered, "Let's show them what humans can do." Her voice came over the comms again. "All ships, prepare for combat maneuvers. Keep your formations tight. Use every trick you've got. And remember, make them regret underestimating humanity." Across the fleet, engines came alive. Blue flames burst from the rear thrusters, cutting bright trails across the darkness. Inside each human ship, the same message echoed, "We are human. We don't give up." As the first alien warships began their approach, the human fleet held its position. No one fired yet. They waited, calm and ready. The alien ships surrounded them fully, weapons glowing. Tukor's voice came again through the speakers. "This is your final chance to surrender." Elena smiled slightly. "You might want to save your breath, General," he growled. "Why?" "Because," she said softly, "you'll need it when you realize what we're capable of." Then she gave the order, "Engage." The stars exploded into motion. Missiles streaked across space. Energy beams flashed like lightning, and the 12 human ships moved with incredible precision. They dodged, turned, and fired back, not like a desperate fleet, but like a single living organism. Fast, coordinated, and fearless. From the alien flagship, Tukor watched in disbelief. These humans were fighting like no other species he had ever faced. Their tactics were unpredictable. Their movements were creative. And through the chaos, the open radio channels still played faint traces of laughter and music. The Carthan commander finally understood something strange. The humans weren't laughing because they thought victory was certain. They were laughing because they refused to be broken. The battle of the Laughing Fleet had just begun. The stars burned bright as beams of light crossed the darkness. Human and Carthan ships danced through space in a deadly ballet. Explosions flared silently in the vacuum, lighting up the black void like brief dying suns. On the bridge of the HSS Resolute, Captain Elena Ward watched her tactical display with sharp eyes. Every second mattered. Every move decided whether her people lived or vanished among the stars. "Status report," she called. Lieutenant Chen replied quickly, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Shields at 60%, Captain. Weapons holding steady. 2 ships, HSS Courage and HSS Dawnfire, took heavy hits but are still in formation." "Good," she said. "Tell them to pull back 10 kilometers and focus on defensive maneuvers. We'll cover them." "Aye, ma'am." Around her, the bridge crew worked like a single machine. They were tired, frightened, but precise. Every one of them knew the stakes. There would be no reinforcements. Humanity was far from home, fighting an empire that ruled 1,000 worlds. But they also knew something else. The Carthan had never fought humans like these before. Outside, the 12 human ships weaved through the larger alien fleet. The aliens had numbers, firepower, and superior armor. But the humans had something different: creativity. The human fleet moved unpredictably, using strange maneuvers that confused Carthan targeting systems. Sometimes they turned sharply into their own engine trails to hide from sensors. Other times they powered down completely for a few seconds, letting their ships drift silently to trick the enemy's tracking. From his massive command ship, General Tukor growled in frustration. The humans' movements made no sense. They should have been crushed already, yet somehow they kept escaping traps. "Report!" he barked. His second-in-command hesitated before answering. "General, the humans are coordinating with unusual efficiency. They're using—" He paused, searching for the right word. "They're using improvisation." "Improvisation?" Tukor snapped. "That's chaos, not strategy." "Perhaps for us," the aide said softly, "but not for them." Tukor slammed a clawed hand against his console. "Then we will crush their chaos with order. Prepare the encirclement pattern." At once, hundreds of Carthan ships shifted positions, forming a tight net around the humans. The trap began to close. Back on the Resolute, alarms rang. "Captain, they're closing in again," Chen warned. "We'll be surrounded within minutes." Elena didn't panic. Instead, a slow smile crossed her face. "Let them come." The crew exchanged quick glances. They trusted her even when her calm seemed almost strange. "Lieutenant," she said, turning to Chen, "signal all ships, code Omega-2. Chen hesitated. "Omega-2? Yes," she said firmly. "Do it." He nodded and sent the signal. Across the fleet, human ships received the order. Crews immediately began moving, adjusting formations and changing course. To the Carthan, it looked like confusion. Some human ships turned away from the others, drifting apart as if they'd lost control. Tukor smiled when he saw it. "At last," he said. "They're breaking formation." But what he didn't know was that the humans weren't breaking, they were baiting. Each ship moved to a new position, forming invisible patterns among the stars. The Omega-2 maneuver was one of the oldest and boldest strategies in human space combat. It relied on deception, timing, and perfect coordination. From above, the pattern looked random. But from Elena's perspective, it was art. "Helm, bring us 30 degrees starboard," she said. "Weapons, prepare pulse decoys." "On my mark." "Aye, Captain." The alien fleet tightened the circle. Their ships glowed with blue energy as they charged their weapons. Then, all at once, hundreds of plasma blasts shot toward the humans. But at that exact moment, Captain Ward gave her command. "Release decoys." Dozens of glowing spheres launched from the human ships, scattering in every direction. They shined like mini-suns, each giving off the same heat and energy signature as a real vessel. "The Carthan sensors went wild, targets multiplied," shouted one of Tukor's officers. "We can't tell which are real." "Fire anyway," Tukor ordered. The Carthan ships unleashed a storm of energy blasts, but half their shots hit only the decoys. The explosions filled space with brilliant light, and through that chaos the real human ships moved unseen. "Now," Elena said. The humans dived straight toward the weakest part of the Carthan formation. Their engines flared blue as they raced forward together, firing precise shots at the alien ships blocking their path. In seconds, 2 Carthan destroyers went dark, their systems disabled by pinpoint hits. The humans had found a way through. "They're escaping," cried Tukor's aide. "Impossible," the general roared. "We had them surrounded." Back on the Resolute, Elena's voice was steady. "All ships head for Vector 992. Stay tight. Don't look back." The fleet pushed forward, slipping through the temporary gap like water through stone. Behind them, the Carthan fleet scrambled to reform, but they were too slow. Inside the bridge, the crew of the Resolute cheered. "We made it through their line," Chen said, smiling for the first time in hours. "Don't celebrate yet," Elena replied. "They'll chase us, and when they do, we'll make them regret it." She opened the fleet channel again. "All ships, you did well. But this fight isn't over. We'll lure them into the nebula. Sensors won't work there, and neither will their numbers. Once inside, we use stealth and speed. We strike from the shadows." Her officers nodded. The nebula ahead glowed faintly pink and purple, its swirling gases hiding the unknown. For the humans, it meant danger, but also opportunity. Minutes later, the fleet entered the edge of the nebula. The colors outside the viewports shimmered like living light. The ship's sensors grew weaker, the readings full of noise. Behind them, the Carthan fleet followed. "General," said the aide nervously, "the nebula interferes with our targeting systems. We'll lose visual contact inside." Tukor grinned cruelly. "Then we'll flush them out. They can't hide forever." But that was exactly what the humans planned to do. Inside the nebula, visibility dropped to near zero. The Carthan ships fired at shadows, at false echoes, and sometimes at each other. The humans, on the other hand, had prepared for this. They used old-fashioned radar, optical sensors, and clever tricks to stay hidden. "Captain," said Chen, watching his monitor, "their formation is breaking apart. They can't keep track of us." Elena smiled again. "Good. Time to give them another surprise." She sent a coded message to the fleet. Within minutes, the human ships split into small groups of 2 or 3. Each group attacked a different Carthan ship, hitting fast, then disappearing again into the misty clouds. To the aliens, it felt like fighting ghosts. "Contact lost," shouted one Carthan officer. "They were right behind us," another voice replied. "Energy spike on our flank. Wait, that's them." Then their screen went dark. From his command ship, Takor grew furious. His fleet, once so organized, now looked scattered and lost. "How can they fight like this?" he shouted. "They are few. They are weak." His aide answered quietly. "They are human, General." Takor glared at him. "And what does that mean?" "It means they don't fight by rules," the aide said. "They fight by heart." Back in the Resolute, Captain Ward watched her strategy unfold. The plan was working. The Carthan fleet was turning on itself, confused and disoriented. But even victory came with a cost. "Captain," said Chen, "we're losing power on Deck 3. Main shields are down to 40%. "Understood," she said. "We'll repair after we clear the nebula." Then for a brief moment she allowed herself to breathe. She looked at her crew, tired, determined, and brave. "We're not done yet," she said softly, "but we've made them remember who we are." The human fleet regrouped deep inside the nebula, their engines quiet, their lights dim. They had survived another day against impossible odds. The Carthan fleet searched blindly, growing more frustrated with every passing minute, and far away aboard the Resolute, a soft sound broke the silence again. A quiet chuckle from the communications officer. "Something funny?" Elena asked. He smiled. "Just thinking, ma'am. They must be so confused out there." Elena nodded. "Let them be. Sometimes confusion is more powerful than fear." She stood tall, looking out at the swirling colors around her ship. "Humans laugh not because they're unafraid," she whispered. "They laugh because they refuse to stop hoping." Outside, the nebula glowed brighter, wrapping the human fleet in a curtain of light as they prepared for the next move. The strategy of the Laughing Fleet had turned the tide, but the real test was yet to come. The human fleet floated deep inside the colorful nebula. Bright clouds of pink, blue, and gold gas twisted slowly outside the viewports, hiding everything beyond a few kilometers. The thick mist made the stars fade like candlelight behind a curtain. It was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Elena Ward stood near the center of the HSS Resolute's bridge, her hands resting behind her back. Her uniform was worn, her face pale from lack of rest, but her eyes still shined with calm determination. Around her, the crew worked carefully, whispering updates as softly as possible. "Status?" she asked quietly. Lieutenant Chen looked up from his console. "Shields at 40%, engines stable." "No new contact signals, ma'am. But the nebula is interfering with long-range scans." Elena nodded. "That's fine. They can't see us either." She turned to her communication officer, Ensign Rayla. "Any transmissions from the fleet?" "Just status pings, Captain. Everyone's holding position and maintaining stealth. The Carthan ships are still searching. We can hear their scanners sweeping, but they're blind in this cloud." Elena smiled faintly. "Good, let's keep it that way." She walked to the main display, showing a map of the nebula. Tiny blue dots marked the positions of the 12 human ships, spread out like hunters in the fog. Red blips flickered on the edges, the Carthan fleet far larger but confused and scattered. For a moment, Elena let herself breathe. They had survived longer than anyone expected. They were outnumbered 50-1, yet they were still fighting. Humanity had always been like that, outmatched, outgunned, but never out of spirit. Then Chen's voice broke the silence. "Captain, incoming signal. Direction, bearing 095. It's weak, but it's from one of ours. It's the HSS Dawnfire." "Put it through," Elena said. The voice of Captain Mason, a friend and veteran officer, came through the static. "Ward, this is Dawnfire. We took heavy damage. Reactors unstable, life support failing. We can't move." Elena's chest tightened. "Can you hold for repairs?" "Negative. Too much radiation. We're venting atmosphere. I can't risk the crew." "Understood," Elena said softly. Get your people to escape pods. We'll pick you up when it's safe. Copy that. But before we go, we're going to make sure they remember us. Mason, don't... But the signal cut out. On the screen, one of the blue dots blinked rapidly. The Dawnfire turned sharply toward the nearest cluster of Carthan ships. For a few long seconds, the bridge of the Resolute was silent. Then a bright light flared deep inside the nebula, a controlled explosion that shook even the Resolute's hull. The Dawnfire was gone, but so were 3 enemy cruisers caught in the blast. The crew on the Resolute fell silent. Helena closed her eyes for a brief moment of respect. They gave us a chance, she said softly. Let's not waste it. Then she turned to Chen. Signal all ships. Prepare to move, Chen blinked. Captain? Move where? Helena pointed to the glowing map. Right through the heart of the nebula. The Carthan are spread thin now. We'll strike their command ship. Cut off the head and the body will fall. It was a dangerous plan, maybe even impossible, but no one questioned her. The human fleet came alive again. Engines hummed, power lines glowed, and the quiet mist of the nebula began to shift with movement. From the Carthan flagship Dominator, General Tikor glared at his screens. Static filled half the displays. His ships kept sending confused messages, reporting ghost signals and disappearing targets. Where are they? He growled. Find them! General, said his aide nervously. The humans are using the nebula's radiation to hide. Our scanners can't distinguish real ships from false echoes. Then increase power. Tikor shouted. Burn through the interference! We tried that, sir. 2 of our vessels overloaded their systems. Tikor slammed a fist on the console, sparks flying. How can 12 ships make fools of hundreds? No one answered. Then suddenly a new alarm filled the Carthan bridge. Contact detected, shouted an officer. Multiple human signatures approaching. Fast! What, from which direction? Every direction. Outside the nebula's mist, light flared again. The human fleet had split into 4 attack groups, each moving in perfect synchronization. They came from different angles, appearing and disappearing like shadows. Before the Carthan ships could react, the humans opened fire. Precision strikes hit engines, sensors, and weapons, never aiming to destroy, only to disable. One by one, Carthan ships went dark, spinning helplessly in the nebula. Counterattack! Tikor roared. All ships, fire everything! The nebula filled with light as plasma bolts and missiles raced in every direction. But most of the shots hit only gas clouds or false echoes. The humans moved too fast, too unpredictably. Inside the Resolute, Captain Ward's voice stayed calm. Helm, adjust by 2 degrees. Keep us low in the radiation field. Fire when ready. A steady beam shot from the Resolute, hitting a Carthan battleship square in its sensor array. The ship spun out of control, vanishing into the gas. Direct hit, shouted Chen. Helena allowed herself a small smile. Good work. Keep the pressure steady. The crew worked tirelessly. Hours felt like minutes as the battle continued, but the humans refused to slow down. Their ships moved like dancers in the fog, using the environment as their greatest weapon. Every time the Carthan regrouped, the humans struck again from another direction. It was not brute strength that won them ground. It was intelligence, timing, and courage. Finally, after countless maneuvers, the humans reached the center of the nebula. And there, floating like a dark fortress, was the Carthan flagship Dominator. Helena stared at it on her screen. There it is, she said softly. Their heart, Chen swallowed hard. That ship's massive, Captain. Its shields are stronger than anything we've seen. I know, she said. That's why we're not going to destroy it. He blinked. Then what are we going to do? She smiled. We're going to talk. When the Resolute approached close enough for transmission, Helena opened a direct channel. The holographic image of General Tikor appeared on her bridge. His face twisted with fury. You again, he growled. You think this foolish resistance will save you? You've lost ships and soon you'll lose everything. Helena stood tall, her voice calm but firm. Maybe, but look around, General. You've lost half your fleet to 12 human ships. You can't see us, can't catch us, can't even understand us, Tikor hissed. We will end you, human. Perhaps, she said. But before you do, I want you to understand something. She leaned forward slightly, her expression steady. We laugh not because we think we're safe. We laugh because even when we stand at the edge of defeat, we are free. That's something you can't take from us. Her words echoed across the bridge. Even through static, the Carthan crew could hear the calm strength in her voice. Tikor snarled. You dare mock me? No, she said. I dare remind you. Before he could answer, the Resolute launched a burst of coded data into the Carthan systems, a harmless signal, but one filled with human music and laughter. It spread across their communication network like a melody carried on the wind. Every Carthan ship within range heard it. Soft human voices, calm and fearless, singing quietly in the middle of chaos. The Carthan officers froze, confused, their instruments filled with the strange sound. "What is this?" one of them whispered. General Takor's red eyes narrowed. He couldn't understand why the sound made his heart feel heavy. The humans were laughing again. On the Resolute, the crew watched the alien flagship fade behind the mist. "Signal sent," said Ensign Rayla softly. "They'll be hearing that for a long time." "Good," Elena said. "Maybe it'll make them think before starting another war." Chen looked at her curiously. "Do you think they'll ever understand us, Captain?" "Maybe not today," she replied. "But someday they'll remember this. They'll remember the fleet that laughed." The bridge fell quiet again. Outside, the nebula swirled gently, glowing in soft shades of blue. The surviving ships regrouped near the edge, their engines flickering faintly in the haze. Elena opened the channel one last time. "All ships, good work. We're alive because of your courage. We've shown the galaxy that humans don't bend easily. Now we head home." Her crew smiled. Some even laughed again, tired but proud. As the fleet turned toward the stars, the nebula behind them glowed brighter, as if the universe itself smiled back. The battle wasn't won by strength or numbers, but by something far rarer, the human spirit. And that day, across 1,000 alien worlds, stories began to spread of the strange humans who laughed in the face of an empire. The nebula slowly faded behind the human fleet, leaving only the vast darkness of open space ahead. The 12 ships, battered but unbroken, sailed through the void with steady engines. Silence returned, but it was a calm, quiet kind of silence, the type that follows great effort and triumph. Captain Elena Ward stood on the bridge of the HSS Resolute, her gaze fixed on the stars. She allowed herself a deep breath, letting the adrenaline fade. For months they had been on the edge of danger, surrounded by enemies who had thought humans were weak, expendable, and easy to defeat. But they were wrong. Around her, the crew began to relax, smiles spreading cautiously at first. Lieutenant Chen rubbed his tired eyes but nodded. "We made it, Captain. We're actually safe for now." "Safe," Elena said slowly, the word tasting strange after so many months of fear. "For now. But we're not home yet. We still have to reach Terran space, and we still have work to do." Ensign Rayla, the communications officer, turned from her console. "Captain, the music and the laughter signals we sent, some of the Carthan fleet picked them up. They're talking about it across their networks. Some ships are hesitating, and it looks like they're confused." Elena's lips curved into a small smile. "Good, let them be confused. Let them remember that humans don't follow their rules. We survive because we think differently, we feel deeply, and we refuse to give in." Back on the Carthan flagship Dominator, General Takor glared at the chaotic readings on his displays. His fleet was scattered, disoriented, and more than half of his ships were disabled. "They used music and laughter," one officer reported, clearly in disbelief. "The humans, they turned fear into joy?" Takor's claws clenched. "They fight differently from anything we have seen. They don't rely on numbers, weapons, or rules. They fight with their minds and their hearts. This is unacceptable." "Yes, General," said the aide carefully. "We underestimated them. The fleet is demoralized. Many Carthan commanders refuse to continue aggressive maneuvers without direct orders." "Direct orders or not," Takor said sharply, "we will not forget this. We will not underestimate humans again." Yet even as he spoke, the image of those small, defiant ships laughing and singing in the face of his empire haunted him. Meanwhile, the human fleet moved cautiously toward safer territory. The nebula's colorful gases faded into the black emptiness of deep space, leaving behind faint trails of energy and the distant flicker of stars. The crew worked tirelessly to repair systems and stabilize shields, engines, and life support on all ships. "We're losing a lot of power in the smaller ships," Chen reported. "We'll need to redistribute energy to keep everyone mobile." "Do it," Elena said firmly. "No one gets left behind." Her voice carried authority. but also a calm reassurance that lifted the spirits of everyone on board. "Captain," Rayla said, "we're receiving signals from other human fleets. They heard about the battle. They're sending congratulations and offers to join us if we reach friendly space." Elena allowed herself a brief laugh. "Not yet. We're still in enemy territory, but it's good to know humanity hasn't forgotten us." The fleet continued, using stealth and careful navigation to avoid the remaining Carthan forces. At every step, the humans were careful, intelligent, and united. Even though they were small in number, their presence seemed larger than life. Across the galaxy, whispers of the laughing fleet began to spread. Stories of humans who defied an empire, who turned fear into joy, who fought with courage and creativity instead of sheer numbers. Days passed as the fleet traveled through uncharted space. Life aboard each ship settled into a rhythm. Engineers repaired damaged engines, medics cared for the wounded, and crew members shared quiet meals and stories. Even in hardship, there was laughter. Even in darkness, there was hope. One evening, Elena walked to the observation deck of the Resolute, staring out at the stars. Lieutenant Chen joined her. "You know," he said softly, "I never imagined humans could do something like this. Laughing at the edge of annihilation. It's incredible." Elena nodded. "It's who we are, Chen. We face impossible odds and we find ways to survive. Sometimes with weapons, sometimes with ideas, sometimes with laughter. The Carthan couldn't understand that, when again that's why we survived." He smiled. "Do you think they'll remember it?" "They will," she said. "Maybe not all of them, but some. Some will tell others. And someday across the galaxy they'll know that humans are not easy to control, not easy to break, and not easy to defeat." The fleet reached the edge of Carthan-controlled space without incident. Sensors confirmed no ships were following. For the first time in weeks, the humans felt true relief. Elena allowed the fleet to regroup. Each ship powered down non-essential systems to conserve energy, while crews slept or tended to repairs. Then, through the fleet-wide communication channel, she addressed all ships. "Crew of the Laughing Fleet, you have done something remarkable. You have survived against impossible odds, and you have reminded the galaxy what humans are capable of. We are small, we are few, but we are strong. We are courageous, creative, and unbreakable. We will take this story home and we will tell it for generations." The response across the fleet was quiet but full of pride. Crew members smiled. Some even laughed softly, remembering the tense moments of battle and how they had turned fear into joy. Meanwhile, in the Carthan Empire, the story of the human fleet spread like wildfire. Reports reached distant commanders and even council members on the Carthan homeworld. The humans were described as strange, unpredictable, and fearless, creatures who laughed in the face of certain defeat. Some Carthan officers felt fear, others felt fascination, but all of them knew one truth: humanity was not to be underestimated. Back in human space, news of the Laughing Fleet traveled quickly. Other human fleets, explorers, and colonies heard the story, not just of the battle but of the humans' courage and ingenuity. It became a symbol of hope and pride, inspiring countless people to stand tall even in adversity. On the Resolute, Captain Ward gathered her senior officers. "We've done more than survive," she said quietly. "We've shown the galaxy who humans are. But our work is not finished. We will return home stronger and wiser. And one day, if the Carthan or any other enemy challenges us, they will remember today. They will remember the humans who laughed when surrounded, and they will think twice before attacking again." Chen nodded. "Captain, do you think we'll ever be seen as heroes?" Elena looked out the viewport, the nebula's colors still faintly glowing in her mind. "Not for ourselves, Chen. We are human. We survive, we fight, and we laugh. That's enough. But if others call us heroes, let them. Our actions will speak louder than any title." As the fleet approached safe space, life aboard the ships became lighter. Engineers joked about repairs, pilots shared stories of near misses, and medics laughed at minor accidents that once would have caused panic. Even the youngest crew members, who had been terrified when surrounded, now moved with confidence and courage. Elena watched all this, her heart swelling with pride. She knew that the Laughing Fleet was more than just a group of ships. It was a symbol, a living example of humanity's strength, unity, and spirit. And far away in the shadows of the Carthan Empire, stories of humans who laughed in the face of an overwhelming enemy continued to spread, reaching even those who had never seen a Terran ship. The legend of the Laughing Fleet had begun. The stars stretched endlessly ahead of the human fleet. Space felt calm now, yet the memory of battle lingered in the minds of every crew member. The nebula behind them was gone, replaced by the familiar darkness of deep space dotted with shining suns. Captain Elena Ward stood on the bridge of the HSS Resolute, her posture firm but relaxed. She watched her fleet moving steadily in formation. They had survived the impossible, surrounded by the Carthan Dominion, outnumbered, and facing what seemed like certain defeat. Yet here they were, stronger than ever, their spirit intact. "Captain," said Lieutenant Chen, his voice steady. "All ships report operational. Systems stabilizing, shields holding, engines at full capacity. We are ready for final approach to Terran space." "Good," Elena replied. "Let's make this homecoming count." The fleet moved as one toward human-controlled space, engines glowing softly like fireflies against the black void. The crew had endured hardship, but their courage and unity had turned fear into action. Every ship carried stories of bravery, ingenuity, and defiance, and every story began with the same thing: laughter. Across the galaxy, word of the Laughing Fleet had already begun to spread. Traders, explorers, and colonists whispered the story in distant systems. Humans had faced an empire alone and not only survived but humiliated their enemy through courage and cleverness. On one of the outer colonies, children gathered around a holoscreen, eyes wide as they watched an animated retelling of the battle. "They laughed at the Carthan?" one child asked. "Yes," said an older sibling. "They weren't afraid. They fought smart, helped each other, and never gave up. That's why humans are amazing." Even Carthan spies had reported the same story back to their leaders. Across the Empire, commanders whispered about the humans' unpredictable tactics, their courage, and their laughter. Some were terrified, others intrigued. The reputation of humanity had grown overnight. Inside the Resolute, Elena addressed her fleet. The voice she carried across every ship was calm but firm. "We've returned from the edge of danger. We've seen what it means to face an enemy that believes it is unbeatable, and yet we survived. Not because we had more ships, more weapons, or better shields, but because we are human. We fight with creativity, with unity, and with courage. We fight with spirit." She paused, letting the words settle. Across the fleet, her crew nodded, some smiling, some laughing softly. The tension of the past days seemed to melt away. "Remember this lesson," she continued. "Wherever you go, whatever battles you face, carry this spirit with you. Be brave, be clever, and never forget that laughter is as powerful as any weapon." As they neared the edge of Terran-controlled space, sensors lit up with familiar signals. Friendly fleets, scouts, and defense stations were waiting. Communications channels buzzed with excitement. "Captain Ward," said a voice over the fleet channel, "we are detecting incoming support fleets. They've heard your story and are ready to escort you safely home." Elena smiled. "Thank them for their readiness and let them know we are coming together, not just as survivors but as a single fleet. Everyone will see the Laughing Fleet return home." The human fleet glided into the space near the home planets. Civilian ships and Terran military vessels turned toward them, engines glowing in greeting. Crowds on distant orbital platforms cheered as the 12 human ships emerged from the darkness. People waved, shouted, and celebrated. A child on one of the platforms turned to their parent. "They're the humans who laughed, aren't they?" "Yes," said the parent, voice full of pride. "They are the ones who showed the galaxy that humans never give up." Even politicians and leaders watched in awe as the fleet passed, perfectly in formation, engines steady, hulls scarred, but unbroken. The story of the Laughing Fleet had already reached every corner of Terran space. They were not just returning, they were returning as legends. Inside the Resolute, Elena watched the celebrations on the screens, her hands resting lightly on the railing. Chen joined her, shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. "Captain," he said, "I never imagined humans could inspire so many, even in one battle." Elena looked at him, her eyes shining. "Chen, humans are more than just soldiers. We are thinkers, builders, and survivors. When we face the impossible, we find a way, sometimes with weapons, sometimes with ideas, and sometimes with laughter. That's what makes us strong," he nodded. "Do you think the Carthan will remember us?" "They will," she said. "And next time they encounter humanity, they will think twice. We've shown them that humans are unpredictable, resourceful, and fearless. And more than anything, they will remember that we laugh, even when surrounded by danger. The fleet landed safely in Terran spaceports. Repairs began immediately, but the energy of victory filled the crews. Stories were shared, meals were celebrated, and quiet laughter spread among the ships. Captain Mason's surviving crew, rescued from escape pods, were greeted as heroes. Even though they had lost their ship, their bravery had contributed to the victory. Elena addressed the crews one final time before leaving the Resolute for the first time in weeks. You have done more than survive. You have shown what humanity is capable of. Your courage, your creativity, and your laughter have made us stronger, and your actions will be remembered for generations. Today, the Laughing Fleet becomes a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of the human spirit. Across the galaxy, humans celebrated quietly and proudly, and in distant alien systems, stories of the Laughing Fleet circulated in secret. Commanders and diplomats whispered warnings. Never underestimate humans. They laugh at impossible odds. The Carthan Empire, still powerful and vast, began to reconsider its approach to humanity. Their commanders had faced 12 human ships and learned a lesson that no weapon could teach: spirit. Courage and ingenuity are forces stronger than numbers alone. Even General Tekor, though furious and humiliated, could not forget the humans. The images of laughing crews, music in the void, and clever strategies haunted him. He understood something vital. Humans could not be controlled, predicted, or easily defeated. Back on Earth and the surrounding Terran colonies, children learned of the Laughing Fleet in schools. Histories were written, songs were composed, and hollow simulations allowed future generations to witness the bravery of those 12 ships. It was more than a story of battle. It was a story of courage, creativity, and unity. It was a story of laughter in the face of fear, of hope in the shadow of destruction, and of humanity refusing to be broken. Even decades later, Terran historians would write, "The Laughing Fleet was small in number but vast in courage. It did not rely on force alone, but on the power of the human spirit. It reminded the galaxy that no enemy, no matter how strong, could suppress humanity's heart, mind, or laughter." On the observation deck of the Resolute, Captain Elena Ward looked out at the stars once more. The fleet was safe, the galaxy had witnessed their courage, and humanity's spirit shone brighter than ever. Lieutenant Chen joined her silently, watching the same stars. "Captain," he said softly, "do you think we'll ever face something like that again?" Elena smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting distant starlight. "Probably, but no matter what comes, humans will face it the same way. Together, with courage and, if necessary, with laughter." "That is who we are," Chen nodded. "Then I'm glad I'm human." "Me too," Elena said. And somewhere in the depths of space, a Carthan officer whispered to a colleague, "They laughed, even when surrounded." Remember that. The Laughing Fleet had returned home, but their legend had already traveled farther than they could imagine. Across the stars, through whispers of other worlds, and into the hearts of everyone who dared to dream, resist, and hope, humanity had survived. Humanity had triumphed, and humanity had laughed.